What if I told you that starting to invest just 5 years earlier could literally make you a millionaire? And what if I also told you that most people have no idea this is even possible? Today, we're going to break down exactly what happens when you start investing early, and I promise you, the numbers will blow your mind. But here's the thing. I'm not here to judge anyone who hasn't started yet. Maybe you're 25 and feel like you're already behind. Maybe you're 35 and think it's too late. Or maybe you're even older and wondering if there's any point at all. We're going to cover all of that because the truth is, the best time to start investing was yesterday, but the second best time is right now. Let me start with a story that perfectly illustrates this concept. Meet Sarah and Jessica. They're both 22 years old, fresh out of college, and they both have the exact same job making $50,000 a year. Sarah decides to start investing immediately. She puts away $300 every month into a simple index fund. Jessica, on the other hand, wants to enjoy her 20s. She's thinking about travel, going out with friends, maybe saving up for a nicer apartment. She tells herself she'll start investing when she turns 30. This single decision quietly costs people hundreds of thousands, not because they picked the wrong investments, but because they gave up years of time. And time in the market matters more than timing it perfectly. Now, when Sarah turns 30, she's been investing for 8 years. She's put in a total of $28,800 of her own money. But here's where it gets interesting. With an average return of 7% per year, her account is now worth about $37,000. Not bad, but not life-changing either. Jessica, now 30, finally decides it's time to get serious about investing. She starts putting away the same $300 per month, but she's 8 years behind Sarah. Fast forward to when they're both 65 years old. Sarah has been investing for 43 years total. Jessica has been investing for 35 years. Sarah contributed a total of $154,800 over her lifetime. Jessica contributed $126,000, so Jessica actually contributed $28,000. $800 less than Sarah, but here's the shocking part. Sarah's account is worth over $800,000. Jessica's account is worth about $400,000. Sarah has literally doubled the money, even though she only contributed slightly more. That 8-year head start resulted in an extra $400,000 in retirement. Nothing dramatic happened. No lucky stock. No secret strategy. She just showed up earlier. And compound interest did the heavy lifting like an unpaid intern who never sleeps. This is the power of compound interest, and it's the single most important concept you need to understand about investing early. When you invest early, you're not just investing your money, you're investing time, and time is the most valuable asset you have. But let's dig deeper into what's actually happening here. When you invest money, you earn returns on that money. It creates this snowball effect that becomes more and more powerful over time. In Sarah's case, that first $300 she invested at age 22, by the time she's 65, that single investment has grown to over $3,000. That's a tenfold increase from just that one monthly contribution. Every month she invested early had decades to compound and grow. Jessica's first $300 investment at age 30 only had 35 years to grow, so it only reached about $2,000 by retirement. Still great, but significantly less powerful. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. $300 a month sounds like a lot when you're just starting out. Maybe you're paying off student loans, or you're barely making ends meet, or you have other financial priorities, and that's completely valid. The beautiful thing about starting early is that you don't need to invest huge amounts to see massive results. Let's look at a different scenario. What if you could only invest $100 a month starting at age 22? By age 65, with that same 7% return, you'd have about $270,000. That's still a significant nest egg, and you only contributed $51,600 of your own money over 43 years. Compare that to someone who waits until age 35 to start investing, but can afford to put away $200 a month. By age 65, they'd have about $190,000, even though they contributed $72,000 of their own money. The person who started earlier with less money still comes out ahead. This is why I want to emphasize that starting early is more important than starting big. Even if you can only afford to invest $50 a month, or $25 a month, or even $10 a month, the key is to start. You can always increase your contributions later as your income grows. But compound interest isn't the only advantage of starting early. When you're young, you have something incredibly valuable that older investors don't have. This next part is why starting early is even more powerful than the math suggests. Risk tolerance. When you're 25 and the stock market crashes, you have 40 years for it to recover. When you're 55 and the market crashes, you have 10 years. This means young investors can afford to be more aggressive with their investments. They can put more money into stocks, which historically have higher returns than bonds or savings accounts, but also higher volatility. Over long periods, this higher risk, higher reward strategy typically pays off significantly. There's also a psychological benefit to starting early that people rarely talk about. When you start investing in your 20s, it becomes a habit. It becomes automatic. You learn to live on slightly less money, and you don't even miss it. When you try to start investing later in life, you're often trying to cut expenses from a lifestyle you've already become accustomed to. It's much harder psychologically. Starting early also gives you more flexibility later in life. Let's say you start investing at 25, but then at 35 you want to take a year off to travel, or go back to school or start a business. You can afford to pause your investments temporarily because you've already built a strong foundation. Someone who starts later doesn't have that luxury. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. What if you're not 22 anymore? What if you're 30 or 40 or 50, and you're thinking this advice doesn't apply to you? Here's the truth that might surprise you. Starting late is infinitely better than never starting at all. If you're 30 and you start investing $300 a month with a 7% return, you'll have about $660,000 by age 65. That's still a substantial retirement fund. If you're 40 and start, you'll have about $390,000. Even if you're 50 and start, you'll have about $180,000. None of these scenarios are as powerful as starting at 22, but they're all significantly better than having nothing at retirement. The key is to stop dwelling on the time you've lost and start focusing on the time you still have. There's also something called catch-up contributions that benefit older investors. Once you turn 50, you're allowed to contribute extra money to retirement accounts like 401s and IRAs. This helps level the playing field somewhat. But here's what really matters. Whether you're 22 or 52, the principles remain the same. Start as early as you can, invest consistently, choose low-cost index funds, and let time do the heavy lifting. The specific numbers might change, but the strategy doesn't. One thing that often holds people back from investing early is the fear of making mistakes. They think they need to learn everything about the stock market first, or pick the perfect investments, or time the market just right. But here's the secret that professional investors know. Time in the market beats timing the market almost every single time. You're better off investing in a simple, broad market index fund today than waiting 6 months to research the perfect stock. You're better off starting with a basic understanding and learning as you go than postponing until you feel like an expert. The investments themselves don't need to be complicated when you're starting early. A simple portfolio of low-cost index funds that track the overall stock market will outperform most professional investors over long periods. The magic isn't in picking winning stocks. The magic is in starting early and staying consistent. So what's the bottom line here? Starting to invest early is probably the single most powerful financial decision you can make in your lifetime. It doesn't require you to be a financial genius, or to have a high-paying job, or to make perfect investment choices. It just requires you to start and to be patient. If you're young and watching this, don't wait. Even if you can only invest a small amount, start today. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to an investment account. Make it as easy and automatic as possible. If you're older and haven't started yet, don't despair. You still have time to build wealth, and every month you wait makes it harder. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The power of starting early isn't just about the money, though the money is incredible. It's about giving yourself options, freedom, and peace of mind. It's about not having to work until you die, or worry about how you'll pay for healthcare and retirement, or stress about being a burden on your family. Starting to invest early is one of the few legal ways to essentially get rich slowly and surely. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen if you're patient and consistent. And that, my friends, is what actually happens when you start investing early. If this video helped you feel more confident about starting, subscribe. I'm building this channel around calm, practical money decisions, one step at a time,